Thomas Parker squinted through his bedroom window at the starlit sky, adjusting the makeshift radio telescope he'd built from satellite dish parts and old electronics. The 16-year-old's room was a testament to his obsession with the cosmos. Star charts covered the walls, model rockets perched on shelves, and a worn copy of Contact lay dog-eared on his desk. The static crackling through his headphones suddenly shifted to a pattern he'd never heard before. Not the usual periodic pulses of a pulsar or the random noise of distant galaxies, but something structured, almost like music, but with mathematical precision that made his skin tingle. "That's impossible," he muttered, frantically noting down the frequency and pattern. 3 months of scanning the sky had yielded nothing but background radiation and the occasional satellite signal. This was different. The signal pulsed in sequences of prime numbers, too ordered to be natural, too complex to be human. Thomas triangulated the signal's origin using his rudimentary equipment. It seemed to be coming from somewhere near the old limestone quarry on the outskirts of town. His heart raced as he grabbed his backpack, stuffing it with his modified smartphone, a flashlight, and his father's old digital camera. The quarry was strictly off-limits, surrounded by chain-link fencing topped with barbed wire, but Thomas knew a gap behind the old processing plant where kids sometimes snuck in to explore. The moon cast long shadows across the terraced stone walls as he slipped through the fence, his boots crunching on loose gravel. The signal grew stronger as he descended into the quarry, his modified phone picking up the same strange frequencies. The mathematical patterns became clearer, prime numbers, yes, but also Fibonacci sequences and what looked like spatial coordinates. His hands trembled as he realized he might be recording humanity's first real evidence of extraterrestrial intelligence. A blue glow emanated from a cave entrance he'd never noticed before, pulsing in sync with the signal. Thomas raised his father's camera, clicking off a few shots before gathering his courage and stepping closer. The air grew thick with an electric charge that made his hair stand on end. The cave opening seemed to shimmer, like heat waves rising from hot asphalt. As Thomas approached, his modified phone erupted in a cascade of data, radiation readings, electromagnetic fluctuations, and patterns that made his head spin. He should have been scared, should have turned back, but curiosity pulled him forward like a magnet. Inside the cave, the blue light danced across crystalline formations that definitely weren't natural limestone. They looked almost technological, with geometric patterns that shifted and flowed like liquid metal. Thomas reached out to touch one, and the entire crystal matrix lit up like a Christmas tree. That's when he heard them. Soft footsteps and a subtle whirring sound, like sophisticated machinery in motion. He spun around to find himself face to face with beings that defied everything he thought he knew about life in the universe. They were tall, easily 7 feet, with iridescent skin that seemed to shift colors in the crystal light. Their eyes were large and multifaceted, like those of an insect, but held an intelligence that sent chills down Thomas's spine. Most striking were their movements, fluid and precise, as if gravity affected them differently. The beings communicated amongst themselves in tones that resonated in Thomas's chest, making his bones vibrate. He recognized elements of the mathematical patterns he detected in their speech. They weren't just using math to communicate, math was their language. One of them stepped forward, raising a device that emitted a soft purple beam. Thomas felt his muscles tense as the beam passed over him, but instead of harm, he felt a strange tingling sensation, as if every cell in his body was being gently prodded awake. The aliens, Thomas couldn't think of them as anything else, seemed particularly interested in his modified phone and the readings it had collected. Their attention shifted between the device and Thomas himself, their communication becoming more rapid and intense. Suddenly, one of them made a gesture, and the cave entrance sealed itself with a crystalline barrier. Thomas's heart jumped into his throat as he realized he was trapped. The aliens began to advance, their movements now more predatory than curious. Without thinking, Thomas bolted deeper into the cave system. His flashlight beam bounced off crystal formations as he ran, casting disorienting patterns across the walls. He could hear the aliens pursuing him, their footsteps unnaturally quiet despite their size. The cave system was a maze of tunnels and chambers, each more bizarre than the last. Some rooms contained what looked like sophisticated equipment, while others held floating orbs of light that responded to his presence. Throughout it all, Thomas felt a growing sensation in his mind, as if something was awakening inside him. As he ran, he noticed his flashlight beam seemed to bend slightly toward his hands, and the crystalline formations pulsed brighter as he passed. The aliens' pursuit had become more urgent, their tones now sharp and commanding. They weren't trying to hurt him, they seemed desperate to catch him before something happened. Thomas rounded a corner and found himself in a vast chamber filled with swirling energy patterns that danced like aurora borealis. His phone was going haywire, its screen displaying impossible readings. The aliens had stopped at the chamber's entrance, watching intently as the energy patterns began to spiral toward Thomas. The sensation in his mind exploded into full awareness as the energy made contact with his body. Thomas felt every electronic device in the chamber respond to his presence, the crystalline formations pulsing in sync with his heartbeat. He realized with sudden clarity that the aliens hadn't been hunting him, they'd been waiting for this moment. As the chamber filled with blinding light, Thomas understood that his life would never be the same. The gift he'd unknowingly carried within him had been awakened, and the real challenge was only beginning. The energy coursing through Thomas's body felt like liquid lightning. Every electronic device in the chamber resonated with his presence, screens flickered, crystals pulsed, and even the aliens' equipment responded to his newfound awareness. He could sense the electromagnetic fields around him like visible waves in the air, could feel the complex patterns of energy flowing through the alien technology. The tallest of the aliens, who Thomas had mentally dubbed the leader, stepped into the chamber. Its multifaceted eyes studied him with what seemed like satisfaction. The being raised a hand, and the swirling energy patterns in the room coalesced into a series of complex, three-dimensional symbols floating in the air. Thomas gasped as he realized he could read them. Not with his eyes, but with this new sense that had awakened within him. The symbols spoke of genetic potential, of dormant abilities hidden in human DNA, of a grand experiment spanning millennia. The Xylaxians, as they called themselves, had been watching humanity, waiting for the first signs of this evolutionary leap. But before Thomas could process this revelation, alarms began blaring throughout the complex. The leader's skin shifted to a deep purple, a sign of distress, Thomas somehow knew, and the other aliens burst into rapid communication. Through his new awareness, Thomas caught fragments of their exchange: danger, rivals, harvesting, protect. The leader turned to Thomas, projecting a series of images directly into his mind. Another alien species, the Draconians, had detected the energy surge from his awakening. They were coming, and their intentions were far from benevolent. The Xylaxians had been protecting Earth, keeping it hidden, but Thomas's awakening had sent a beacon across the stars. Run, the leader projected, the word forming in Thomas's mind with crystal clarity. Learn. Survive. The chamber's far wall dissolved, revealing a network of tunnels that seemed to stretch for miles. Thomas didn't need to be told twice. He sprinted into the darkness, his new senses providing an awareness of his surroundings that his eyes couldn't match. He could feel the electromagnetic fields generated by the crystal formations, using them like a three-dimensional map. Behind him, he heard the sounds of conflict erupting. Energy weapons discharged, their electromagnetic pulses sending shivers through his enhanced awareness. The Xylaxians were buying him time, holding off the first wave of Draconian scouts that had already arrived. Thomas ran deeper into the tunnel system, his mind racing faster than his feet. Every piece of alien tech he passed seemed to reach out to him, responding to his presence. He found himself instinctively interfacing with security systems, sealing doors behind him and rerouting power to create barriers. The pursuing Draconians were nothing like the Xylaxians. Where the Xylaxians moved with fluid grace, the Draconians thundered through the tunnels like predators. Their energy signatures burned hot and aggressive in Thomas's new awareness, and their intentions radiated like psychic heat, they wanted the power they detected, wanted to harvest it, weaponize it. As he ran, Thomas discovered his abilities growing stronger. He could now manipulate the electromagnetic fields around him, using them to boost his speed and even affect the crystal formations. When a group of draconians got too close, he found himself instinctively pulling energy from nearby systems, creating a localized EMP that disrupted their equipment. The chase led him deeper into the earth, through chambers filled with alien artifacts and laboratories that hinted at the true scope of the Xylaxians' presence on Earth. Each room contained new wonders, but Thomas couldn't afford to stop and examine them. The draconians were constantly behind him, their pursuit relentless. In one massive chamber, Thomas found what looked like a training ground. Holographic interfaces sprang to life as he entered, responding to his electromagnetic signature. The leader's words echoed in his mind: learn. Survive. With the draconians momentarily held back by another security barrier, Thomas took a risk. He reached out with his new senses, connecting to the training system's interface. Information flooded his mind: techniques for electromagnetic manipulation, the principles behind Xylaxian technology, the true history of human potential. The Xylaxians had known that humans like him would eventually emerge, had prepared these facilities to train them. But the process was meant to be gradual, controlled. The draconians' interference had changed everything. A massive explosion rocked the chamber. The draconians were getting closer, and they were done playing nice. Thomas could feel their weapons powering up, could sense them preparing for a final push to capture him. He wasn't ready for a confrontation, not yet. The training download had given him knowledge, but he needed time to process it, to learn how to use these abilities effectively. Thomas spotted a maintenance shaft leading deeper into the complex. According to his enhanced senses, it connected to natural cave systems that might lead to the surface. As he pulled himself into the shaft, he felt a familiar presence touch his mind. The leader, still fighting above, sent him one final message: coordinates, a location where he could find others like himself. He wasn't alone in this evolutionary leap, but he needed to survive long enough to find them. The shaft dropped suddenly, and Thomas found himself sliding into darkness. His powers provided awareness of his surroundings, but control was another matter. He tumbled through the maintenance system, using electromagnetic fields to cushion his fall when possible, bouncing off walls when his control slipped. The draconians' roars of frustration echoed through the facility as their quarry escaped into passages too small for their bulky forms to follow. But Thomas knew this wasn't over. He'd been thrust into a conflict beyond anything he could have imagined, armed with powers he barely understood and knowledge he hadn't had time to process. As he finally emerged into natural caves, feeling fresh air from some distant entrance, Thomas made a decision. He would find the others like him, would master these abilities, and would help the Xylaxians protect Earth from what was coming. The gift he'd received wasn't just power, it was responsibility. The chase had ended, but a much larger journey was just beginning. The natural cave system gradually sloped upward, guiding Thomas toward what his enhanced senses told him was the surface. His newfound abilities picked up electromagnetic disturbances above, not draconian signatures, but something different. Something familiar. He emerged from the cave entrance into a moonlit forest clearing to find a Xylaxian scout ship hovering silently above the trees. A figure stood at the edge of the clearing, tall and iridescent like the others, but somehow different. As it stepped into the moonlight, Thomas realized this Xylaxian was younger, its movements less fluid but more energetic. "I am Kira," the young Xylaxian projected into his mind. "Lead researcher in human potential. We've been watching you, Thomas Parker. You've exceeded our calculations." Thomas felt a mix of exhaustion and wariness. The others, the leader, are they fighting, but alive? The draconians were forced to retreat when their presence began drawing human attention. But they'll be back. Kira's skin shifted through patterns of blue and green. "We don't have much time. Your awakening was premature, but perhaps that's for the best. The Draconians have accelerated our timeline. The scout ship descended, its hull seamlessly opening to reveal an interior that hummed with familiar energy patterns. Thomas followed Kira inside, his electromagnetic sense mapping every system, every power flow. The technology was incredible, but no longer incomprehensible. His download from the training system had given him a foundation to understand what he was seeing. As the ship rose above the forest, Kira explained. Humanity stands at a crossroads. For millennia, we've watched your species, protecting you from those who would interfere with your development. We recognize the potential in your DNA, the capacity for abilities far beyond your current evolutionary state. The ship's viewscreen showed images of human history, but from a perspective Thomas had never considered. Ancient megalithic structures that were actually early warning systems, mysterious disappearances that were really Xylaxian interventions to protect emerging gifted humans, crop circles that were encrypted messages to their hidden bases. The Draconians discovered our interest in Earth centuries ago, Kira continued. They've been trying to unlock the secret of human potential ever since. Where we see beings to protect and guide, they see weapons to be harvested and controlled. Thomas watched the Earth grow smaller as they ascended into the stratosphere. Why me? Why now? Your generation is special, Thomas. Climate change, technological advancement, increasing electromagnetic fields around your planet, all of these factors are accelerating human evolution. You're not the only one awakening. But you're the first to make direct contact with us, and your particular gift is unprecedented. The ship entered a holding pattern in low orbit. Kira led Thomas to what appeared to be a training room, its walls lined with technology that responded to his presence. Your ability to interface with and manipulate electromagnetic fields is beyond anything we predicted. Most awakened humans develop specific, limited abilities. You appear to have access to the fundamental force that underlies them all. Over the next few hours, Kira guided Thomas through exercises that pushed the boundaries of his new abilities. He learned to extend his electromagnetic sense over vast distances, to manipulate energy fields with increasing precision, and to interface with technology in ways that even the Xylaxians found remarkable. But more than the training, it was the information Kira shared that transformed Thomas's understanding. The Xylaxians had been guiding human development since the species' infancy, not through direct intervention, but by protecting Earth's natural evolution from outside interference. They had bases hidden throughout the solar system, monitoring humanity's progress and defending against species like the Draconians. We believe humanity has the potential to surpass even our level of development, Kira explained. Your species' adaptability, creativity, and resilience, combined with these emerging abilities. The Draconians fear what you might become. That's why they want to control your evolution, to harvest and weaponize your potential before it fully manifests. As they trained, Thomas began to sense other awakening humans around the globe, faint electromagnetic signatures that pulsed with untapped potential. Some were already being watched by Xylaxian observers, while others were only beginning to show signs of their gifts. The Draconians will target them, Thomas realized, his heart racing. Like they targeted me. Kira's skin shifted to a deep purple. Yes. And we don't have the resources to protect them all. Our war with the Draconians spans galaxies, Earth is just one front, albeit an important one. Thomas understood what wasn't being said. The Xylaxians needed help, needed him and others like him to become protectors of their own species. The training wasn't just about mastering his abilities, it was about preparing for the role he would need to play. A sudden alarm pierced the ship's quiet hum. Kira's skin flashed with patterns Thomas now recognized as combat alerts. On the view screen, multiple Draconian ships emerged from hyperspace, their energy signatures burning like malevolent stars in Thomas's awareness. They tracked us, Kira projected, moving to the ship's control interface. They're not just after you anymore, they're making their move on Earth. The time frame has collapsed. Thomas stepped up beside her, his electromagnetic sense extending to merge with the ship's systems. He could feel the draconian weapons powering up, could sense smaller ships launching toward Earth's atmosphere. They were heading toward the locations of other awakening humans. Then we collapse it further, Thomas said, his voice firm. You've shown me what I can do. Now show me how to find the others. It's time to stop running and start fighting back. Kira's skin shifted to a pattern Thomas hadn't seen before, something like pride mixed with concern. The next phase of your training will have to happen in the field. Are you ready? Thomas felt the weight of responsibility settling onto his shoulders, but also a surge of determination. Everything he'd learned, everything he'd become, had led to this moment. Ready or not, those other awakening humans need us. And I'm done letting the Draconians dictate the terms of this conflict. The scout ship's engines hummed to life as they prepared to re-enter Earth's atmosphere. The real war for humanity's future was about to begin, and Thomas Parker, the boy who once only watched the stars, was about to become one of its first soldiers. Thomas and Kira's ship screamed through Earth's atmosphere, racing against time. Through his enhanced senses, Thomas could track the draconian vessels dispersing across the globe, each targeting a potential awakened human. The patterns were clear, they were starting with the strongest signatures first. There, Thomas said, interfacing with the ship's navigation. London. That signature's the strongest. They found Lyra Chen on the roof of her apartment building, already defending herself against draconian scouts. The 16-year-old girl's ability to manipulate gravitational fields had manifested just hours earlier. She held two draconians suspended in mid-air, her face tight with concentration. Thomas reached out with his electromagnetic powers, shorting out the draconians' weapons and communication systems. Kira's ship made quick work of their backup, and within minutes, they had extracted Lyra. I thought I was going crazy, Lyra said once they were safely in orbit. Then these things showed up, and suddenly the crazy part wasn't so bad. Over the next 12 hours, they rescued 7 more awakening humans, each with unique abilities. James O'Connor could manipulate thermal energy. Zara Patel could process and analyze data at quantum speeds. Marcus Thompson could generate and control plasma. Each rescue made their team stronger, but also drew more draconian attention. The final rescue brought them to Rio de Janeiro, where they found twin brothers Rafael and Gabriel Santos. Their combined ability to manipulate time in localized fields made them especially valuable targets. The Draconians had sent a full-strike team. They're adapting to our tactics, Kira warned as they approached. They're learning. The battle for the twins pushed their growing team to its limits. Thomas coordinated their efforts, using his electromagnetic sense to link their abilities together. Lyra created gravity wells to trap draconian forces. James superheated their weapons until they melted. The twins bought them precious seconds with temporal fields. But it was Zara's quantum processing that saved them, identifying a pattern in draconian shield frequencies that allowed them to break through their defenses. When they finally extracted the twins, their victory felt like more than a rescue, it felt like a proclamation. The humans weren't just fighting back. They were becoming something new. The resolution. The Draconian mothership appeared over New York City 3 days later. It dropped its cloaking field in broad daylight, making first contact a public event. Their message broadcast worldwide: submit to Draconian authority, allow them to guide human evolution, or face extinction. They're forcing our hand, Kira explained. By revealing themselves, they're trying to pressure Earth's governments into accepting their offer. Thomas stood with his team, 11 awakened humans and 3 Xylaxian advisors, watching the mothership's demonstration of power. The Draconians created localized weather events, manipulated gravity, and displayed weapon systems that made nuclear arsenals look like toys. They're showing off, Lyra observed. But they're also showing us their systems. Thomas nodded. Every display of power relied on technology that generated electromagnetic fields. Fields he could sense, understand, and potentially manipulate. The others picked up on his thinking immediately. A synchronized attack, James suggested. All of us, using our abilities together. Zara's quantum processing had already run the scenarios. We'd need to get close. Really close. And we'd need a distraction, Raphael added, his brother Gabriel finishing the thought, something big enough to draw their attention. The plan came together quickly. The Xylaxians would launch an obvious attack from orbit, drawing the Draconians' attention upward. Meanwhile, Thomas's team would approach from below, using their combined abilities to cloak their presence. They launched their attack at dawn. The Xylaxian fleet emerged from hyperspace, engaging the Draconian mothership in a spectacular battle above Manhattan. As energy weapons lit up the sky, Thomas led his team into position. Lyra manipulated gravity to carry them upward. The twins created temporal fields to slow any defensive responses. James and Marcus generated a thermal and plasma shield. Thomas extended his electromagnetic sense into the mothership systems, guided by Zara's quantum analysis. What they found inside the Draconian ship changed everything. These systems, Thomas projected to his team. They're human in origin. Reversed engineered from previous harvests. Zara confirmed it. They've been stealing human potential for millennia. Everything they have, they took from us. The revelation galvanized them. As one, they extended their powers. Thomas interfaced with the ship's systems, creating pathways for the others. Lyra collapsed gravitational fields around key systems. James and Marcus superheated and plasma-charged critical components. The twins created temporal loops that trapped Draconian crews in moments of confusion. The mothership systems began to fail. But the Draconians had one last card to play. Self-destruct sequence, Zara announced. They'll take out half the eastern seaboard. Thomas reached deeper into the ship's systems than he'd ever gone before. He felt his consciousness expanding, touching every circuit, every power conduit. The others linked with him, adding their powers to his effort. In that moment of connection, something extraordinary happened. Their combined abilities didn't just stop the self-destruct, they transformed the energy, redirected it. The mothership glowed from within, not with destruction, but with creation. When it was over, the Draconian ship hung inert in the sky. Its crew was alive but unconscious, their weapons and technology permanently transformed. The message to any watching species was clear: humanity would not be harvested, controlled, or destroyed. They were becoming something else entirely. Epilogue. 6 months later, Thomas stood with his team at the new United Earth Defense Academy. Around them, hundreds of newly awakened humans trained with their abilities. The Xylaxians had shifted from protectors to partners, sharing knowledge freely with a species they now recognized as equals. We still don't know our full potential, Lyra said, watching a young student learning to manipulate quantum fields. Thomas smiled, feeling the steady pulse of electromagnetic energy that connected them all. Maybe that's the point. The Draconians wanted to control human evolution because they feared what we might become. But our greatest strength isn't in our powers. It's in our endless capacity to grow, adapt, and surprise even ourselves, Kira finished, her skin glowing with patterns of joy and pride. Above them, the stars beckoned. But this time, humanity would reach them on their own terms, not as harvested weapons or protected children, but as beings becoming something entirely new. The gift Thomas had discovered in that first desperate chase had never been just about power. It had been about potential, not just his own, but all of humanity's. And that story was just beginning.